Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's great to see you all here. Last time, we left Noah, his family, and a whole zoo's worth of animals floating on a worldwide ocean. The rain had been falling for 40 days and 40 nights, and everything outside the ark was covered by the floodwaters. It's a pretty intense and somber scene. You can just imagine the feeling inside that ark, the constant rocking, the sounds of the animals, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. They had been on the water for 150 days. That's 5 months. Talk about a long cruise. So, what happens next? Does God forget about them, adrift on this endless sea? Let's dive into Genesis chapter 8 and find out. The chapter opens with one of the most comforting phrases in the Bible. But God remembered Noah. Isn't that powerful? In the midst of this global catastrophe, after months of silence and waiting, God didn't forget. He remembered Noah, his family, and every single living creature with him in the ark. This isn't like when we forget where we put our keys. In the Bible, when God remembers, it means He is about to act on His promises. His memory is linked to His faithfulness. He was about to set His plan of rescue and renewal into motion. So, how does He do it? The first thing God does is send a wind to sweep over the earth. You can almost feel that first gust of wind as a sign of change, a breath of new life moving across the water. This wind starts the process of drying everything out. At the same time, the Bible says the fountains of the deep and the windows of heaven were closed, and the rain from the heavens was restrained. Basically, God turns off the cosmic faucets. The sources of the flood are shut down, and the downpour stops completely. The water, which had been rising and raging, now begins to recede. It's a slow and gradual process, but the tide has finally turned. After 150 days on the water, something significant happens. On the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark comes to a stop. It rests on the mountains of Ararat. Can you imagine the relief they must have felt? That first gentle bump after months of floating. They weren't just aimlessly drifting anymore. They were grounded. They were home, even though they couldn't see the ground yet. The water continued to decrease, and about 2.5 months later, on the first day of the 10th month, they saw something they hadn't seen in a very, very long time. The tops of the mountains. It's the first glimpse of a new world, a sign that the judgment was over and a new beginning was on the horizon. The world was re-emerging from its watery grave. So, the ark is resting on a mountain, and the peaks are starting to appear. Noah has been cooped up inside this floating vessel for the better part of a year. He's probably getting a little antsy, right? He's a man of faith, but he's also practical. He needs to know if it's safe to go outside. So, what does he do? 40 days after the mountain tops appeared, Noah opens the window of the ark, a window he had made. This is his first real interaction with the world outside. He decides to send out a scout. His first choice is a raven. Now, ravens are interesting birds. They're scavengers, they're tough, and they can eat just about anything, including carrion. Noah releases the raven, and the Bible says it flew to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. The raven didn't come back into the ark. It was able to survive out there, likely finding places to land and things to eat as the water level dropped. It was a good sign, but it didn't give Noah the specific information he needed. Is the ground dry enough for everyone, including the land animals, to come out? So, Noah tries a different approach. He sends out a dove. Doves are different from ravens. They are cleaner birds and need dry ground to land and find their food. He sends out the dove, but it flies around and finds no resting place for the sole of her foot. The world was still too wet and muddy. So, the dove does what any sensible creature would do. It flies back to the only safe place it knows, the ark. Noah reaches out his hand, takes the dove, and brings it back inside. This tells him, not yet. It's not time. Patience is a key theme here. Noah has waited this long. He can wait a little longer. Noah waits another 7 days. This 7-day rhythm is significant throughout the Bible, often marking a period of completion or divine timing. After a week has passed, he sends the dove out again. This time, the story takes a hopeful turn. The dove comes back in the evening, and in its beak is a freshly plucked olive leaf. This is a huge moment. An olive leaf. This means that not only is there dry land, but trees are alive and growing. Life is returning to the earth. The olive branch has since become a universal symbol of peace and new beginnings, and it all started right here with this little dove. Noah now knows for sure that the waters have receded from the earth. The end is in sight. He's got the proof he needs, but Noah still waits. He's a man who moves at God's pace, not his own. He waits another 7 days and sends the dove out for a third and final time. And this time, the dove doesn't come back. It found a new home. The world was ready. The dove's departure was the final confirmation that life outside the ark was sustainable again. The long, dark chapter of the flood was finally drawing to a close, and a new day was dawning for humanity and for the entire planet. Now we get to the big moment. We're told that, by the first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year, happy birthday, Noah, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah takes a bold step and removes the covering of the ark. He looks out, and for the first time, he sees that the surface of the ground is dry. What a sight that must have been! A whole new, clean world, washed and ready for a fresh start. But even then, Noah doesn't just throw open the doors and rush out. He waits. For almost another 2 months, he waits. Why? Because Noah has been walking with God this whole time. He didn't get on the ark until God told him to, and he wasn't getting off until he got the same command. He waits for the official word, and it comes. God speaks to him and says, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife, and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply on the earth." This is the great release. Can you imagine the scene? The ramp is lowered, and out they come. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives, 8 people, stepping onto dry land after more than a year at sea. Then come the animals, pairs and groups of every kind of creature, blinking in the sunlight, stepping onto solid ground, free to roam and repopulate the earth. It must have been an incredible parade of life. A beautiful and noisy procession, celebrating their survival and the start of a new world. This wasn't just an exit. It was a commissioning. God was releasing them with a purpose, to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth once again. So, Noah and his family are finally on dry land. The animals are dispersing across the new landscape. What's the very first thing Noah does? Does he build a house? Plant a farm? Explore the new world? No. The very first thing he does is build an altar to the Lord. His first act in this new world is an act of worship. This tells us everything we need to know about Noah's heart. He is profoundly grateful. He recognizes that his survival, the survival of his family, and the survival of all these creatures is entirely due to God's grace and mercy. He builds this altar and takes some of every clean animal and every clean bird and offers them as burnt offerings on the altar. This is a sacrifice of thanksgiving and dedication. It's an acknowledgement of God's holiness and a recognition of his own dependence on God. And God's response is beautiful. The Bible says, "The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma." This isn't about God literally enjoying the smell of smoke. It's a symbolic expression. He was pleased with the posture of Noah's heart, a heart full of faith, gratitude, and worship. And in response to this heartfelt worship, God makes a promise. He says to himself, "I will never again curse the ground because of man. For the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done." This is a monumental promise. God acknowledges the deep-seated problem of sin in the human heart, but he resolves to deal with it differently from now on. He won't hit the reset button with a global flood again. Instead, he establishes a new covenant of stability for creation. He promises that as long as the earth endures, the natural rhythms and cycles will continue. He says, "Seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, shall not cease." This is God's promise of common grace to all of humanity. It's the reason farmers can plant seeds expecting a harvest. The reason we can count on the sun rising every morning. And the reason the seasons continue to change. It's a promise of stability in a world that had just experienced the ultimate instability. It's a foundation of predictability and order upon which humanity can rebuild. What an incredible way to end a story of judgment, not with another threat, but with a promise of grace, faithfulness, and a new beginning. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today as we walked through this amazing chapter. It's a story of patience, faith, and God's incredible faithfulness. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. It really helps a lot. We'll see you in the next video.